Good morning. Today we are going to be talking about the 100th day of school, which is tomorrow. So we'll be celebrating it tomorrow. Yesterday's video, you talked about the number 100 and how to count it by tens. So we're going to incorporate that at the end of our video today. But first, we're going to read a story. Then we'll talk about the number, and then we'll learn how we can use 100 items to be creative. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you, and we will begin to read our story. It's called Jake's 100th Day of School by Lester L. Lamanek. And if you look here, you can see the number 100. How many times throughout the book do you think we're going to see the number 100? Let's see. Mr. Thompson's class was excited. Tomorrow would be the 100th day of school. Every day since school began, Mr. Thompson started class by adding one link to the Good Morning chain. Tomorrow they would add the 100th link, and all the students would bring their collections of 100 things. Mr. Thompson said he had a superific surprise planned too, a visit from Jake's grandma Maggie. Everyone knew that meant something wonderful would happen. Why do you think Jake's grandma Maggie is coming to visit school? Let's see. When school was out that day, Jake and his friends chattered about their projects. So that means they were talking about what they were going to do. I have 98 bottle caps, Henry said. Just 2 more to go. My dad and I can drink that much juice when I get home. I'm done, said Douglas. My mom helped me collect the last of my 100 signatures in her office last week. I have 87 paper clips, Emily chimed in. I needed 13 more to make 100. And I got those from Mr. Booker in the library today. I'm working on a book of memories, Jake said. I collected 100 pictures of my family, and I've put most of them in the book already. Mr. Thompson was in the classroom very early on the 100th day of school. He wanted to have everything ready for the big event. Yep, he said to himself, today is the big day. Jake was so excited about the 100th day of school that he rushed out the door to catch the school bus. What happened? What did he forget? He left something important at home. He didn't even think about his book bag until the bus stopped for Emily. When he saw her wearing a chain of paper clips around her neck, Jake felt a flutter in his stomach. When he saw Henry boarding the bus with 100 bottle caps glued on a poster, Jake felt a lump in his throat. When Douglas showed his collection of 100 signatures, big tears welled up in Jake's eyes. By the time Jake arrived at school, he was surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of things. If we look here, we could see the word 100 buttons, 100 marbles, 100 rubber bands, and sailing all around his head, 100 paper airplanes. More, 100 cookies, 100 pencils, 100 beads in braids. And hanging from a wooden rod, 100 lucky cranes. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things. Good morning, Jake, said Mrs. Wadsworth, the principal. Are you all set for the 100th day of school? Jake stood like a statue and looked at her. He couldn't make a word come out of his mouth. He couldn't stop the tears spilling from his eyes. Did you forget? Mrs. Wadsworth asked. Her voice was softer than a pillow. Jake could only nod his head. Mrs. Wadsworth put her arm around his shoulders. Come in my office. We'll think of something. What do you think they're going to think of? What might they use? Jake climbed into the big chair, and Mrs. Wadsworth sat next to him. "Could we call someone at home to bring your collection?" she asked. "Everyone's at work," Jake said, sniffling. "Grandma Maggie's not home either. She's getting ready for the superific surprise." "Let's check around here," said Mrs. Wadsworth. "I'll bet we can find 100 of something." "I don't know," said Jake. 100 is a whole lot of stuff. "Do you suppose I have 100 paper clips in this jar?" she asked. "You think she has 100 in there?" Jake said, "It doesn't look like 100. Besides, Emily's wearing 100 paper clips." He looked around the office. "Mrs. Wadsworth, all you've got in your office is books. Lots and lots of books." "I guess we can make a collection of books." "Absolutely, Jake," said Mrs. Wadsworth with a smile. 100 books would make a wonderful collection for a super reader like you. Let's see if I have that many." Jake and Mrs. Wadsworth took books from her shelves. They counted 10 books and made a stack. 10 more and 10 more until they had 10 stacks. Jake touched each stack as he counted carefully. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. "Wow, Mrs. Wadsworth, that's 100 books." See, he counted by 10. Together, they rolled the cart of books down the hallway to room 24. Jake added his collection to all the others. Then he made a sign. 100 books from Mrs. Wadsworth's office. When all the projects were on display, Mr. Thompson told the class that it was time to begin the 100th day of school. "Mrs. Wadsworth," he said, "before you go back to your office, would you add the 100th link to the Good Morning chain?" The morning was filled with even more hundreds. The 100th check mark was placed on the I Fed Goldilocks chart. I guess they have a fish that they were feeding. The 100th knot was tied on the days of reading rope. And some kids took turns sharing their collections of 100 things. Around 10 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. When Mr. Thompson opened it, Jake's Grandma Maggie came in with someone the kids had never seen. The surprise visitor walked with a wooden stick, stepping very slowly into the room. "Good morning, boys and girls," Grandma Maggie said. "This is my Aunt Lula. Can anyone guess why I brought my Aunt Lula for the 100th day of school?" Why do you think she might have brought Aunt Lula? "Maybe it's because of that stick," Henry said. "I'll bet there's 100 ribbons on it." Aunt Lula eased into Mr. Thompson's chair and chuckled. "Well, you're a very clever boy," she said. "I did tie 100 ribbons on my walking stick." "But that's not the only reason," said Grandma Maggie. "My Aunt Lula is 100 years old." "Wow," was all the children could say, and the sound of it swished across the room like wind on the playground. "Aunt Lula and I are going to help you make a special snack," Grandma Maggie said, unrolling a chart with their recipe written on it. Let's see what's on the recipe. 25 raisins, 25 chocolate chips, 25 banana chips, and 25 walnuts. So if we add all of those up, it equals 100. Jake was the last to share his 100th day project. "I made a picture book of 100 memories, except I forgot it this morning," he said. "But that's okay, because Mrs. Wadsworth helps me make a collection of books from her office. She must have 1,000 of them in there. I put them in 10 stacks of 10. And if you count by tens, that's 100 books." Should we try it? Let's look up here by the books. So we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, how many? 100. Jake, that's an excellent collection, said Mr. Thompson. I know you also worked very hard on your book of 100 memories. Would you like to bring it in tomorrow? We'd love to see it. It wouldn't be the same, Mr. Thompson. Tomorrow will be 101 days of school. You're right about that, Jake's teacher said, nodding. So they add a day. Tomorrow, they'll add a day. Jake sat thinking for a moment. He looked at Grandma Maggie with a twinkle in his eyes, and then he whispered something to Mr. Thompson. Good idea, Jake, said his teacher. Grandma Maggie, would you please stand with Aunt Lula near the book cart? Jake said as he headed out the door. I'll be right back. When Jake returned to the classroom with Mrs. Wadsworth, Aunt Lula said, all right now, let's show him some teeth. And Mr. Thompson snapped their picture. Why do you think Jake asked to take a picture? Let's keep reading. The next day, Jake brought his picture book of 100 memories to share with the class. But it wasn't the 100th day anymore. Now it was the 101st day, and that meant one more page. See, he put the photo and says 100th day of school. Me with Aunt Lula, Grandma Maggie, Mrs. Wadsworth, and 100 books. So that was a good idea. He took a picture of his 100th day and he added it onto his memory book. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. And now, so in the book, we talked about counting by tens, right? I have a picture that I'm going to show you for something, a project that I worked on. And give me 1 second and I'll share it with you. Okay. So you should be able to see over here on the plates, I counted out marshmallows and I did them in groups of 10. So we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Okay, so it was 100 marshmallows. And with those 100 marshmallows, you want to see what I made? Here it comes. Hopefully it doesn't fall. See? It's a little tilted. Marshmallows are they're soft, so sometimes it's hard. Once they get a little stale, they should stay easier. But there's my creation with 100 marshmallows. And then in school today, with one of the students, we counted out 100 different items and made a picture together. Okay? So if we count them all, there are 100 items here. And he wanted to make a rainbow, so then we did the colors to reflect our light unit that we did. And then he also made a pattern with the gems in the rainbow. Okay, so there's a lot of different things you can do. These are 2 examples of something that you can do. So our challenge for you at home is to try to build something with 100 items or make an art project, a creation with 100 different items. Some choices could be crayons, cards, cups, marshmallows, and toothpicks. Okay, and make sure you take some pictures or a video of you building or creating and send it to your teachers. We hope you have fun, and we'll see you on live for the 100th day of school. Have a good day.